I need to cite you as a cautionary tale to help my country. And the moral of that tale is, yes, you can move too far left. And when you do, you wind up pushing the people in the middle to the right. At its worst, Canada is what American voters think happens when there's no one putting a check on extreme wokeness. Have you ever seen the Eurovision Song Contest? They actually listen to that crap. Look, everywhere in the world, I'm sure, seems great when you haven't lived there. I hear people tell me Costa Rica is beautiful. I'm sure it is. You'll also get bitten by a snake on the flight over.
Bill Maher opened the discussion with a sharp political warning. According to him, when a political movement moves too far to the left, it often pushes people in the middle toward the right. Maher pointed to Canada as an example, suggesting that many American voters see it as what happens when extreme wokeness goes unchecked. His tone was sarcastic but pointed. He argued that many places around the world look perfect from a distance, especially if you have never lived there. From political narratives to cultural perceptions, Maher suggested that criticizing America has almost become a kind of performance art. Yet the narrative often changes depending on who holds political power.
Again, I'm confused by this political message. Vote for me because I hate it here. Now, does America have big problems? Yes, I've often cited the America sucks list. Things like being 54th in the world in infant mortality behind Cuba, 19th in literacy behind Russia, 72nd in female representation in government behind Iraq. A lot of work to do here. And is it possible for a country to lose itself so much that leaving it is justified? Yes, but we're not there yet, not by a long shot, and we don't need quitters. We need people who will stay and fix it.
Maher also acknowledged that America has real problems. He cited issues like infant mortality, literacy rankings, and the representation of women in government as examples where the country still has significant work to do. But his core argument was that abandoning the country is not the solution. According to Maher, when things become difficult, people should stay and work toward fixing the system instead of walking away from it. He emphasized that meaningful change requires persistence and responsibility. If the very people who claim to care about improving the country leave when challenges arise, progress becomes nearly impossible.
Maybe the problem isn't that America isn't worth defending. Maybe the problem is that lots of people today are entitled whiners who have no perspective and no idea how good they have it. 59% of self-identified liberals say there have been times when they considered leaving America for good, like after NBC canceled The West Wing. I don't get it. You want so badly for every immigrant to come to this country and experience the good life, but somehow it's so terrible you want to leave?
Maher highlighted what he sees as a major contradiction in modern political messaging. On one hand, some activists portray America as deeply flawed and unbearable to live in. On the other hand, they strongly support policies that encourage immigration, inviting people from around the world to come to the United States. Maher questioned this logic. If the country is truly as terrible as critics claim, why promote it as a destination for others seeking opportunity? In his view, this contradiction reflects a lack of perspective and ultimately confuses voters.
If, for your exile, you do wind up in some comparatively luxurious place like Canada or Japan or the UK, not that they want you. At best, you'll be trading a bunch of stuff you hate about this country for a bunch of stuff you'll soon hate about your new home. It took me only 4 days in Amsterdam to learn that while I admire Amsterdam, I don't want to live there. The buildings are cramped and shaped like needles. The food is awful. The TV's in a different language. It's wet and cold. The people are polite but cold, and they do a bunch of weird shit. The explanation for, according to my friend, was just remember they're high.
Maher then expanded the discussion to the broader idea of moving abroad. Many people imagine that life in other countries would automatically be better than in the United States. However, Maher argued that every country comes with its own set of problems and trade-offs. He shared personal observations from traveling in Europe, explaining that what seems charming during a short visit can feel very different when you actually live there. Cultural differences, everyday inconveniences, and lifestyle adjustments can quickly turn the dream into something far less appealing.
Italy always makes the list of great expat destinations because of all those stories on CNN about how you can buy a house in a quaint Italian village for $1. Except it's not a house in the way we think of one as a structure with plumbing and electricity and a roof. When these places were built, the Leaning Tower of Pisa was still straight. Sure, you can spend $100 grand to make them livable, and I'm sure it's no problem to find reliable workmen in rural Italy who you'll then fall in love with like in Under the Tuscan Sun, but now you're living in some dinky village in Italy with nothing to do but watch the old guys play that game with the wooden balls.
Another point Maher emphasized was the way media narratives often romanticize other countries. Clean streets, efficient public systems, and peaceful lifestyles are frequently highlighted in documentaries and travel stories. But according to Maher, these portrayals often ignore the real challenges people face in those societies. Economic pressures, strict regulations, and social tensions can exist just beneath the surface. When people only see the polished version of another country, they may start believing that everything abroad is automatically better than what they have at home.
Have you ever seen the Eurovision Song Contest? They actually listen to that crap. Look, everywhere in the world, I'm sure, seems great when you haven't lived there. I hear people tell me Costa Rica is beautiful. I'm sure it is. You'll also get bitten by a snake on the flight over. The travel site Lonely Planet describes Sri Lanka as endless beaches, timeless ruins, welcoming people. And if you love child marriage, food shortages, and the strictest abortion laws in the world, Sri Lanka could be right for you.
Maher used several humorous examples to illustrate how misleading these idealized images can be. Travel websites and television programs often describe certain countries as paradise, beautiful beaches, welcoming communities, and simple lifestyles. However, they rarely mention deeper issues like economic struggles, restrictive laws, or cultural barriers that foreigners might face. Maher argued that when people romanticize other countries without understanding the full reality, they are chasing an illusion rather than making an informed.
But I hate zombie lies. That's when things change, but what people say about them doesn't. Yes, for decades, places like Vancouver and Amsterdam and Stockholm seemed idyllic because everything was free and all the energy we needed was produced by riding a bike to your job at the windmill. Canada was where all the treasured goals of liberalism worked perfectly. It was like NPR come to life. But with poutine. Canada was the Statue of Liberty with a low-maintenance haircut and cross-country skis, a giant idealized blue state with single-payer health care, gun control, and abortion on polite demand.
The conversation then turned specifically to Canada. For many years, Canada has often been presented as a model progressive society, frequently praised for policies such as universal health care, gun control, and strong social programs. Maher argued that while Canada is still a great country, the idea that it represents a flawless system is simply not accurate. Like any nation, Canada faces its own economic pressures, political debates, and social challenges.
There's only one problem with thinking everything's better in Canada. It's not. Not anymore, anyway. Last year, Canada added 1.3 million people, which is a lot in 1 year, the equivalent of the U.S. adding 11 million migrants in 1 year. And now, they're experiencing a housing crisis even worse than ours. And we're sleeping in tents. The median price of a home here is $346 grand. In Canada, converted to US dollars, it's $487. If Barbie moved to Winnipeg, she wouldn't be able to afford her dream house, and Ken would be working at Tim Hortons.
One of the most striking examples Maher pointed to was Canada's housing crisis. In major cities like Vancouver and Toronto, housing prices have risen dramatically, making it extremely difficult for average families to afford a home. In some cases, the price-to-income ratio has reached levels where homes cost more than 10 times the average household income. This creates a major affordability gap that challenges the idea of Canada as an easy or perfect escape for people seeking a better life.
Their vaunted healthcare system, which ranks dead last among high-income countries in access to primary health care and ability to see a doctor in a day or two. And it's not for lack of spending. Of the 30 countries with universal coverage, Canada spends over 13% of its economy on it, which is a lot of money for free health care. Look, I'm not saying Canada still isn't a great country. It is, but those aren't paradise numbers. If Canada was an apartment, the lead feature might be America adjacent. And if America was a rental car, Canada would be America or similar.
Healthcare was another topic Maher addressed. Critics of the American system often point to Canada's universal healthcare as a superior alternative. However, Maher noted that the system also struggles with long wait times for specialist appointments and medical procedures. In some cases, patients must wait months for treatment. His point was not that one system is perfect or that the other is completely broken, but that every healthcare model involves trade-offs and limitations.
And again, honestly, Canada, I'm not saying any of this because I enjoy it. I don't, because I've always enjoyed you. But I need to cite you as a cautionary tale to help my country. And the moral of that tale is, yes, you can move too far left. And when you do, you wind up pushing the people in the middle to the right. At its worst, Canada is what American voters think happens when there's no one putting a check on extreme wokeness, like the saga of Canadian shop teacher Kayla Lemieux, whose pronouns are she, her, and those.
In the closing part of the discussion, Maher returned to his main warning. Political movements, he argued, risk losing public trust when they push ideology to extremes and ignore internal criticism. Using Canada as an example, he suggested that when politics becomes dominated by rigid cultural expectations, many voters begin drifting toward the center in search of balance and practicality. His final message was clear. Instead of romanticizing other countries or abandoning their own, people should focus on improving the system they already have. Real progress comes from confronting problems directly and working together to solve them.